If I talk about the Indian side, they were heavily relying on the S-400 defense system provided to them by the Russians. And then their second major important thing that they were having high hopes from was the French Rafales. And on the contrary, they are trying to talk about the HQ-9 defense system, the Chinese system, PL-15 missile system, JF-17 and JC-10. So how these Pakistani weapons and these sophisticated machines, with the help of China, they were able to defy Russian or the French Rafales?
Well, first of all, I would say, philosophically, the taste of the pudding is in eating it. And in how to measure the result of aerial combat in particular, as well as the war between India and Pakistan in general, the only criteria is to see whether you shot down the planes on the other side, whether you also suffered losses, and then you compare gains versus the losses, and you will come up with a conclusion. I think in this particular case, the loss of the Indian planes, up to about 6 planes, including Mirage, including Rafale and the MiG, for example, is well recorded, because you cannot just fool mankind for such a major event. And you can gather data from different sources, from Rafale itself, for example, the company which made them, as well as from the jump seat manufacturers, etc., as well as lots of satellite images, for example. So I think India should have the decency of telling its own people, sorry, we lost up to about 6 planes this time, but we want to promote peace, and let's figure out how to solve the problems between India and Pakistan in peaceful ways, and hopefully diplomacy will prevail.
Exactly.
Rather than talking about jingoistic and militaristic terms, for example, as if, for example, they can use such terms to frighten off the Pakistani side. Now, in this regard, allow me to mention, and I say this with due respect for all the other countries, including France and Russia, and also with respect for the Indian people, I would say the Chinese military has already achieved a very high level of superiority and excellence. China has always measured up, not against India, not against Russia, but against the United States. And China has already accumulated
Professor, is this one major reason? Could this be the one major reason why a superpower like USA, who was least bothered about this conflict 2 days before this dogfight, and suddenly they were forced to jump in for the ceasefire? Could this be the one reason, the Chinese sophisticated superiority?
Well, I understand before the war broke out involving airplanes, the United States warned both India and Pakistan not to scramble their F-16 fighter planes made by the United States, whatever their reason. I do not want to go into that. Therefore, in this direct aerial confrontation between India and Pakistan, no US-made fighter planes were actually scrambled, while Indian side, in their version of alternative truths, they kept saying that they've fought down the F-16 fighter planes on the Pakistani side. So I think, first of all, we need to sift through all these different, sometimes conflicting versions of the narratives. And I would say the Pakistani side had a home run this time, and the Indian side really suffered a huge defeat. But I hope the Indians.
Professor, because I'm running short of time, and I got so many questions for you, I would like to hear more about some other questions from you. India is now all set. I just heard from the media that they're all set to go for stealth manufacturing within India, and they are trying to, manufacture a stealth plane. But we were eyeing at J35 as well, which is one of the finest thing that China has produced. So should we see it on the card for Pakistan, the J35 project?
Well, for the Indian government's announced plan to build their own version of the stealth plane is very audacious. However, first of all, it involves a lot of uncertainty. And it may or may not be a success. It may most likely be a failure. So I wish the Indian side good luck, but we need to be very closely monitoring the situation. But allow me to mention one thing. For a country like India to build the top quality stealth plane is nothing easy. And you really need to accumulate experiences and know-how over the decades. So for a budgeted time of 10 years to produce the stealth plane probably is erring on the overly ambitious side. So I hope China and Pakistan can closely cooperate with each other. And I truly believe the Chinese government will have no reservation and no hesitation in sharing with the Pakistani brothers and sisters the most sophisticated hardware and software, as well as China's gaining superiority in space program AWACS, for example. As
that will be great. That will be truly great for Pakistan. Professor, just a few days back, our Director General ISPR, Lieutenant General Ahmad Sharif, while he was talking to the press, he said that China is also a party in Kashmir dispute. How do you see this statement?
Well, first of all, I personally have a great problem with India's position. India now claims that whatever the British Indian Empire left to them should be recognized as the Indian territory. Now, this is false in the sense that between China and India, for example, for thousands of years, we had no territorial disputes. And the problems were created by the British colonists. So I don't think the Indian side really has a legitimate claim to say, well, there is a line drawn by the British Indian colonists, and that line, without being accepted at all by any of the Chinese government, should be recognized at the China-Indian border. Now, I would say, whatever the British Indian colonists didn't achieve by themselves should never be held by the current Indian government as the final border between China and India. There are territorial disputes between China and India, and I hope we will be able to use a lot of wisdom to solve them rather than being bogged down by such territorial disputes. There is very serious territorial disputes involving Kashmir. That's well recorded, and I do not want to go further and further into details because there are different ways to look at it. But one thing for sure is that Kashmir is disputed territory.
Obviously, and without resolving that issue, that very issue, this region cannot attain peace. Professor, you're absolutely right. Before I wind it up, I need to ask you another important question that is related to Afghanistan. We recently witnessed some meetings between Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Chinese foreign ministers, that too in the China. And then the news came that the CPEC, a part of BRI, is extending to Afghanistan as well. Is Afghanistan on the same page, the roadmap of peace and progress with China and Pakistan?
Well, you may know that China's beginning of the economic reform and opening to the outside world started in 1978, 79. This was exactly the time when the situation in Afghanistan was lost. It was involved in 10 years war, initiated by the former Soviet Union. Subsequently, it was involved in 20 years war, initiated by the United States. So by now, China is already the largest economy if we use purchasing power parity, whereas Afghanistan is still bogged down in poverty and lack of development. So my point of view for the people and the government in Afghanistan is that focus on development. Don't be bogged down by extremism, terrorism, or backwardness, for example. The people in Afghanistan have great aspirations for better living standards, and by cooperating between China, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and other neighboring countries, I'm pretty sure tomorrow for Afghanistan will be much brighter than yesterday or even today.
Professor, you had a chance to deal with the Indian media at multiple news channels. You had a chance to appear on some international outlets, and just recently you had also been part of Pakistani news shows and talk shows. What exactly is the major difference between Indian news channels and the Pakistani news media's handling? I'm just asking it on a very lighter note.
Yes, indeed. I sometimes am shocked by the lack of objectivity and the decency, the way the Indian side is raising their questions. They completely present an alternative narrative.
Exactly.
They seem to live in a parallel universe. They seem to be completely detached from the realities on the ground. And I think the more they endure in that direction, they probably will make themselves very much as a laughing stock in the
Exactly.
world. They even send delegations to several important countries to present their version of the truth. I don't think any country will be fooled by their alternative truth.
Exactly. Professor Victor, many thanks for your precious time for our show.